If the universe was sung into existence, then what song is hidden in your own voice? This is the question the ancients asked, and it is the question we return to now. Long before the first physician put ink to scroll, long before modern science spoke of DNA or frequency, there were whispers of a secret, that 33 seconds of conscious sound could unlock a power buried deep within. For centuries, this knowledge was guarded, concealed in stone chambers, and whispered only to initiates who had earned the right to hear it. To most, it seemed like myth, a story from a world too far away. But fragments of that wisdom remain, etched into rituals, encoded in chants, preserved in the memory of cultures, oceans apart. And today, as science begins to trace the outlines of what the ancients always knew, the veil is lifting. What you are about to hear is not simply history, nor is it mere belief. It is a journey through Egypt's temples, through India's sacred texts, through the discoveries of modern laboratories, all converging on one truth: sound heals, sound awakens, sound transforms. And the most astonishing part is that the key has always been closer than you think. It has always been your own voice. So stay with me until the end, because that is where everything comes together, where sound and silence meet, where the 33 seconds become not just an idea, but an experience. Beneath the desert sands, inside the echoing chambers of ancient Egyptian temples, silence once reigned. It was not the silence of emptiness, but of anticipation, like the hush before the first note of a symphony. Those who entered these dark stone halls knew they weren't there to be entertained. They were there to be transformed. The initiates sat in stillness, their breath shallow, their senses sharpened, waiting. They waited because they believed that the right sound, sung at the right moment, could shift the very fabric of the human being. For them, sound was not decoration. It was not a pastime. It was power, a sacred technology designed to realign the body and the soul. When the priest finally began to chant, it wasn't music in any modern sense. It was a tone, pure and unwavering, a vibration that filled the chamber like invisible fire. Those who listened didn't just hear it, they felt it. Their bones quivered, their organs hummed, their hearts beat in rhythm with the sound, and in that trembling, something within began to reorder itself, as if an ancient code locked inside the body had been awakened. The Egyptians knew the human being was like an instrument capable of harmony, but prone to slipping out of tune. Illness, to them, was not an invader from the outside, but the result of one note falling out of rhythm with the rest. To restore health was to retune the instrument, and the most powerful tool to do so was not a stone, nor a herb, nor a blade, but the human voice itself. They saw the voice as carrying the soul's signature, unique and unrepeatable. To speak in anger scattered energy, to speak with love brought balance, and to chant with intention could pierce through the dense layers of matter and release what was trapped. The priests became masters of this knowledge, engineers of vibration, mapping the frequencies of the body like a craftsman maps the strings of a harp. Step inside one of those ancient chambers, and you'd understand why their walls were built with such precision. They weren't simply monuments to the dead, they were instruments themselves, amplifying sound so that one note could ignite the entire space with resonance. To the priests, the temple was not a building, it was a tuning fork for the soul. And here lies the astonishing truth. Long before medicine was inked onto papyrus scrolls, long before doctors studied anatomy, these ancient people understood healing as resonance. They believed that health was not about adding something foreign, but about dissolving the blockages that stopped life from flowing. Sound was the key, and the body already knew the language. That same wisdom, once hidden in silence, has not disappeared. It is still written into you. Your cells, your heartbeat, your breath, they carry echoes of that forgotten code. And the voice you dismiss as ordinary, the voice you use every day without a second thought, still holds the power to awaken it. Long before the sands of Egypt covered the tombs of kings, there were whispers of another place, a civilization said to hold knowledge, so advanced it seemed less like history and more like myth. Atlantis. Legends tell us that when this great city collapsed, much of its wisdom was lost, but not all of it vanished. Some of its secrets were carried across the waters, safeguarded by one who would later be worshipped in Egypt as a god of wisdom. Thoth. To the Egyptians, Thoth was more than a deity of writing or learning. He was the keeper of codes, the bridge between what had been destroyed and what could be preserved. He brought with him a science of sound that was not simply about healing bodies, it was about opening hidden doors within the human soul. These were not metaphors for self-reflection. They were seen as literal gateways, portals into states of consciousness, where memory, energy, and spirit could be rearranged. The priests who learned from Thoth believed that a chant could do more than soothe. With the right vibration, entire layers of the soul could be unlocked. They spoke of tones that reached beyond flesh, frequencies that touched the invisible lattice where past traumas, forgotten lifetimes, and even the patterns of destiny were stored. To hear such a sound was to stand at the threshold between worlds, one foot in matter, the other in the unseen. But the promise of this knowledge carried a shadow. The same vibration that could awaken could also unravel. A chant sung without precision, without the purity of intention, could scatter energy instead of uniting it. The ancients warned that careless use of these tones might collapse the vibrational field of the initiate, leaving them weaker rather than whole. For this reason, the secrets were never written openly. They were guarded like living passwords, passed only to those deemed ready, and it is here that curiosity begins to ache like hunger. Why was this wisdom hidden? Why were we told that sound is entertainment, when once it was revered as a key to eternity? If Thoth carried fragments of Atlantis to Egypt, how much remains undiscovered, still waiting in the silence? The yearning for these answers is what keeps seekers listening, hoping that the same portals once guarded in stone chambers might open again, this time within their own hearts. Across the world from Egypt, in another cradle of ancient wisdom, sages were speaking a truth so profound, it seems impossible they had never met. In India, the Vedic seers declared that the cosmos itself did not begin with fire or stone, nor with the hand of a craftsman shaping matter. They said the universe began with sound. Nada Brahma, the world is sound, not putri, not a metaphor, but the literal claim that existence itself was sung into being. When you place this side by side with the Egyptian mysteries, the effect is staggering. In the stone corridors of Karnak and Luxor, priests described sound as sacred technology, the hidden code that arranged flesh and spirit. In the forests and mountains of India, sages described the primordial vibration, as the very heartbeat of creation. Two civilizations separated by oceans and millennia, yet they spoke the same truth in different tongues. Form emerges from frequency. Picture it. Before light fractured into color, before matter condensed into stars, there was tone, a vibration moving through the void, shaping the unseen into patterns, ordering chaos into cosmos. Modern science calls it resonance. The ancients called it the song of creation, and the idea alone is overwhelming to think that galaxies, suns, rivers, and even your body are echoes of a sound still reverberating across eternity. It is not difficult to see why these traditions guarded their knowledge so closely. To claim that the universe is sound is to claim that the key to creation lies in vibration itself. Whoever holds that key can shape form. The Egyptians hinted at this when they said, "The one who masters sound masters form." The Vedic seers said the same when they insisted that Om is not a word, but a frequency spanning every plane of existence. What does this mean for us? If existence was sung into being, then every atom within you is still humming with that first note. Your heart's rhythm, your cells, even the rise and fall of your breath, they are all fragments of that cosmic song. You are not separate from the vibration that built the stars. You are part of it. When you chant, when you allow your own voice to resonate, you are not imitating creation. You are joining it. And here is where the feeling of awe becomes almost unbearable. To sit in silence and whisper, Om is not simply to meditate. It is to touch the same vibration that once poured light into the void. It is to place yourself at the beginning of time and realize that you are still connected to it. Every repetition, every breath carrying that sound is a reminder the universe is not outside of you. It vibrates within you, waiting to be remembered. To realize this is to be overwhelmed, not in fear, but in reverence. You begin to see the world differently. Every sound is no longer background noise. It is structure, architecture, creation in motion. Every word you speak shapes reality, just as that first sound shaped the cosmos. This is the legacy the ancients tried to preserve. Not myth, not superstition. A truth so immense, it still humbles science today. The world itself was sung into existence, and the song has never stopped. For centuries, the claims of the ancients were dismissed as metaphor, charming myth, perhaps, but nothing more. Yet modern science has slowly walked itself back into the same temple, carrying microscopes and oscilloscopes instead of incense. What it has discovered sounds eerily like what the priests and sages declared thousands of years ago. Everything vibrates. Nothing is still. Matter is not solid, but a dance of frequencies, shifting and arranging themselves in patterns that hold the world together. One of the most striking demonstrations of this comes from a field known as cymatics. Place fine grains of sand or droplets of water on a vibrating plate, and as the frequency shifts, the particles leap and rearrange themselves into intricate geometric patterns. A low dissonant tone produces chaos, irregular shapes, unstable and broken. But when the sound becomes harmonic, the chaos resolves into beauty, mandalas of astonishing symmetry, delicate starbursts, shapes so precise they look as though carved by an unseen hand. This is not mysticism. It is visible proof that vibration creates form. The ancients said, sound governs structure. Cymatics shows us exactly how, when you watch matter dance to sound, it is hard not to feel a deep stirring of recognition, as though you're glimpsing the same forces that once sang the stars into being. Now, consider this. Your body is more than 70% water. If grains of sand can be rearranged by vibration, what happens to the water in you when it is exposed to sound? What happens when that sound is harmonious or when it is toxic? Experiments have shown that positive words, gentle music, and healing frequencies can lead to water crystals forming in stunning, ordered shapes. Harsh words, noise, or dissonant sounds, on the other hand, create fractured, chaotic forms. If water remembers vibration, then your cells do as well. Every thought, every spoken word leaves an imprint. This is where science begins to meet the wisdom of sound healing. Studies in vibrational medicine have drawn attention to one frequency in particular, 528 Hz. Researchers such as Dr. Glenn Ryan have observed its effects on DNA, noting how this single vibration appears to encourage strands to repair themselves, as if the body recognizes the sound as a signal to return to balance. What the Egyptians described as sacred fire, what the Vedic sages called Om, science now measures in hertz and records in journals. And here is why this matters. Trust begins to form when worlds that once seemed opposed, spiritual tradition and laboratory experiment, speak the same language. The priests may have called it sacred technology, while scientists call it frequency and resonance, but the bridge between them is undeniable. To see with your own eyes that sound shapes matter is to realize that your voice, your breath, your very thoughts are not abstract. They are forces that sculpt the field you live in. This is not poetry, this is physics. And when you begin to trust it, you open to the possibility that the wisdom once hidden in stone chambers is not only real, but waiting to be practiced again. This time, with your own voice as the instrument. For all the grandeur of temples and sacred rituals, the most powerful instrument of healing was never locked away in stone chambers. It has been with you all along, your own voice. The ancients believed that every human carried a vibrational signature, a unique resonance that no one else in the universe could replicate. It was as distinct as a fingerprint, but infinitely more powerful, because it was not just an identity, it was a force that shaped reality. They taught that when a person speaks with anger, the frequency shatters harmony. It throws the inner field into turbulence, scattering energy like a drum beaten out of rhythm. But when a person speaks with love, something remarkable happens. The tone doesn't just change, it balances. It reorganizes the subtle layers of the body, like tuning a harp that had fallen slightly flat. The voice, in its essence, was never neutral. It was always creating, always shaping, always declaring something into being. Imagine your voice as a beam of light. When directed with intention, it pierces the dense layers of matter, dissolving the knots and blockages that medicine often cannot touch. That light can travel where hands cannot reach, through muscle, through memory, even into the patterns of thought that repeat unconsciously. The ancients knew this, which is why chanting was never casual. It was a precise act of focusing the soul's light through the instrument of sound. Modern life has dulled our awareness of this truth. We use our voices to rush through conversations, to complain, to fill silence. We forget that every word vibrates through our cells and through the people who hear us. We forget that the way we speak is the way we tune ourselves. But the body remembers, the soul remembers. And when you bring your voice back into alignment, when you speak or sing with presence, you unlock a force that has been waiting quietly for your command. You don't need elaborate rituals to begin. You don't need to travel to a sacred temple or find a master to bless you. The nearest doorway to healing is already in your chest, your throat, your breath. Your voice is both key and portal. When you allow it to carry love, clarity, and intention, it reorganizes your inner field. It reminds your cells of their original harmony. This is empowerment in its purest form, to realize that you do not need to borrow someone else's song to heal. You have always had your own. The forgotten instrument has been waiting to be remembered. And when you begin to use it, not just to speak, but to align, you step into the same current that once moved through the halls of Egypt, the same current that sang the universe into being. There is an ancient teaching that describes the human body as a temple with 7 chambers of fire, each one waiting for a spark. These chambers are not seen by the eyes, but felt in the vibrations of life itself. Today, we call them chakras, though to the ancients, they were not symbols or metaphors. They were living gateways, each tuned to a frequency, each awakened by a sound. The sages spoke of syllables that were not invented by poets or priests, but discovered in silence. These sounds seemed to rise out of stillness itself, each carrying a vibration that touched a hidden place within the body. They called them seed syllables: lam, vam, ram, yam, ham, om, and a. To chant them in sequence was to climb an invisible ladder of resonance, each step carrying the soul higher, each tone lighting one of the 7 fires. The journey began at the root, with lam. As the sound vibrated at the base of the body, it grounded the initiate, reminding them of safety and belonging. It was the tone of survival, of stability, of standing firmly upon the earth. From there, the chant shifted to vam, and the vibration moved upward, stirring the waters of creativity, pleasure, and emotion. The sacral fire awakened, reminding the singer that life was meant to flow, to move, to be felt deeply. Next came ram, burning in the center of the abdomen. It was the flame of willpower, the furnace of determination. Those who chanted it felt warmth rising, a fire that said, "I can." It was followed by yam, echoing in the chest. This was the sound of love, pure, expansive, dissolving the walls of fear and opening the heart like a flower to the sun. Above it, ham awakened the throat, clearing the channel of expression. With this syllable, words gained truth, and the voice aligned with the soul. Then om, vibrating at the forehead, resonated with vision. It was the sound of inner sight, the echo of galaxies, the whisper of the eternal. And finally, a tone so pure it seemed to dissolve beyond the body altogether, lifting consciousness into unity with something greater than form. Each syllable was not just a sound, but a key, and when sung together, they formed a staircase of vibration, a ladder invisible to the eye, but undeniable to the one who climbed it. The ancients described it as the path to the throne of higher consciousness, not a literal throne, but a state where time seemed to slow, where duality dissolved, where the soul remembered its original fire. To practice this was not to entertain oneself. It was to enter a sacred dialogue with the body and the universe. The sound touched the base, then the waters, then the fire, then the heart, then the voice, then the vision, and finally, the crown. Each step opened a new chamber, each vibration aligning what was once hidden. The body, once scattered, became whole again, vibrating as one. Imagine it sitting in silence, eyes closed, your voice trembling with each syllable. You feel the base of your body rumble with lam. You sense your emotions stirring with vam. You feel the fire rise with ram, the chest open with yam, the throat clear with ham, the forehead expands with om, and finally, with a vibration that seems to echo beyond your skin, carrying you into a space where there are no walls, no boundaries. This is sacredness, not as belief, but as experience. The ancients understood that when you climbed this ladder of sound, you weren't escaping life. You were awakening it. You weren't leaving the body. You were tuning it to its original song. And in that tuning, you remembered what had always been there, the 7 fires burning within, waiting to rise, waiting for your voice to call them back into flame. Among the many tones revered across cultures, one frequency has gained extraordinary attention, both from mystics of the past and scientists of today. 528 Hertz. The ancients called it the key of the heart, a vibration so pure and harmonious that it seemed to realign whatever it touched. To them, it was not just a sound, it was a current of life itself, capable of restoring what had been broken. Modern research has begun to confirm what the sages intuited. Studies in vibrational medicine point to 528 Hertz as more than a pleasant tone. At the cellular level, it appears to encourage strands of DNA to repair themselves, as if the body recognizes the vibration as a signal to return to balance. Cells exposed to this frequency have been observed to regenerate more quickly, to reorganize into patterns of health rather than disease. To those who chant or listen, the experience is often described as deeply soothing, almost as though every nerve remembers where it belongs. But what makes 528 Hz truly hopeful is that it is not locked behind laboratory doors or expensive instruments. You do not need advanced technology to experience its effect. Your own voice is capable of producing this frequency. With breath and intention, you can align yourself with it, sending its resonance through your chest, your skull, your entire body. The idea that such a powerful healing tool rests within reach of anyone, that is the kind of revelation that gives birth to hope. People who immerse themselves in this sound often describe the sensation as coming home. There is a familiarity to it, as though the cells themselves sigh in recognition. The mind quiets, the heart steadies, the body softens, and what once felt fragmented begins to knit itself back together. In that moment, healing ceases to be a distant promise and becomes a felt reality. To sing or hum at 528 Hz is to remember what health feels like, not as something to chase, but as something innate. The Egyptians might have called it sacred fire. The Vedic sages might have called it Nada Brahma, but the essence is the same: harmony. And harmony always begins within. Hope rises here, not as wishful thinking, but as trust in a simple, living truth, that the same frequency which strengthens the fabric of life at its smallest scale can be carried by the sound of your own voice. To connect with it is to realize that healing is not somewhere far away. It is as close as your breath, as near as the song waiting in your chest. For all the power that sacred sound carries, the ancients insisted that its work was never complete without what followed. Silence. Sound awakens, they said, but silence integrates. The vibration may set energy in motion, but it is within the pause, the stillness after the chant, that the healing truly settles into place. In Tibetan monasteries, chants were never endless streams of sound. They were woven with spaces of quiet, intentional gaps that allowed the resonance to sink deeper into the body. Monks believed that these silences were not empty. They were filled with presence, a kind of invisible gravity that anchored the vibration into the soul. Without the silence, the sound remained incomplete, like striking a bell and never listening for the echo. When you sit in that silence after chanting, something begins to shift. The nervous system, often locked in constant defense, starts to relax. Muscles soft, the breath steadies, and energy that was once scattered redistributes gently throughout the body. What felt blocked begins to flow, not through effort, but through surrender. The mind may grow restless at first, searching for words or meaning, but soon it quiesces, realizing that the true message is being written in a language beyond thought. This is why the ancients warned, do not rush from sound to sound, do not fill every space. The gap between notes is as sacred as the notes themselves. It is in that space where memory stirs, where spirit descends, where the unseen integrates with the seen. To honor silence is to honor the hidden half of sound's power, and so you are invited to try it. After chanting even for just those 33 seconds, resist the urge to move, to speak, to break the moment. Sit with it. Feel what lingers in your chest, what hums in your bones, what whispers through the quiet. It may seem subtle, but within that stillness lies the gentle stitching of your energy back into harmony. Silence is not absence, it is pure presence. It is the fertile ground where the seed of vibration takes root. It is the pause that allows you to hear the echo of your own soul. And when you learn to embrace it, when you no longer fear quiet, you begin to discover that silence itself is a teacher. A reminder that peace does not have to be created, it only has to be remembered. There are moments in chanting when something unexpected rises, a trembling in the chest, a lump in the throat, tears that come without warning. At first, it seems like nothing more than emotion, but the ancients would have told you it is far more. Every time you sing with intention, you are not simply producing sound, you are unlocking memory. They believed the soul carried its own hidden archive, layers of experience gathered across lifetimes, veiled at birth, so we could walk through this world, unburdened. Yet those memories never disappear. They remain, waiting like sealed letters in a forgotten drawer. And when vibration reaches the right frequency, the drawer opens, the files begin to stir. People who experience this often describe it as a release that makes no sense to the mind. A grief they didn't know, they carried melts into peace. An ache long buried suddenly dissolves into lightness. Some feel chills racing along their arms, as if their very skin remembers what the mind cannot. It is as if the soul, long silenced, finally clears its throat and speaks again. This is why chanting was never just a technique. It was a ritual of remembrance. The priests of Egypt, the sages of India, the monks of Tibet, all spoke of tones that awakened memory beyond words. They understood that the body can heal wounds, but the soul carries scars too, invisible marks that shape our fears and desires. Sound, sung with presence, was the key to lifting those veils and letting the soul step back into wholeness. To see this in yourself is both overwhelming and liberating. You realize you are not just healing your muscles or calming your mind. You are reviving aspects of your spiritual identity that had grown dim. You are retrieving pieces of yourself scattered across time and experience. Each chant becomes a ceremony, each note a torch carried into the forgotten corridors of the spirit, illuminating what has long been hidden. And liberation comes not from analysis, not from dissecting why these memories return, but from allowing them to rise and pass. Tears fall, tension releases, energy that had been trapped flows freely again. What was once weight becomes clarity. What was once silence becomes song. This is the gift the ancients wanted us to inherit, that sound is not only medicine for the body, but remembrance for the soul. And as you allow the forgotten layers to surface, you may find that the liberation you sought outside was always waiting within, hidden in your own voice, waiting for you to call it forth, always carried inside. For all the mystery and history surrounding sacred sound, its real power only reveals itself when you practice. Knowledge without action remains theory, but the moment you take a breath and let your voice carry intention, the wisdom of the ancients becomes your own. That is why they spoke of 33 seconds as the turning key, a span of time long enough for vibration to move past the restless chatter of the mind and into the deeper layers of the self. So let us begin. Sit with your spine straight, grounded but relaxed, as though the crown of your head is gently pulled upward by invisible light. Place your hands on your lap, close your eyes, breathe in slowly, letting the air fill not just your chest, but your belly, until you feel a fullness pressing gently against your ribs. Hold that breath for a moment, and then release it in the form of sound. The sound is simple. It is the hum of the letter M, carried from the chest, through the throat, resonating in your skull. Allow the vibration to spread like ripples in water. Feel it in your bones, in your heart, in the spaces you rarely notice. Stay with it, not rushing, not straining, for 33 seconds. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be beautiful. What matters is presence. What matters is intention. As the sound continues, notice how the mind begins to quiet. Thoughts lose their grip. Tension eases. You are no longer performing a task. You are allowing vibration to do what words and willpower cannot. When the 33 seconds come to an end, resist the urge to move too quickly. Sit in the silence that follows. Listen with your body. Feel how the energy has shifted, subtle yet undeniable. This brief practice is more than an exercise. It is a doorway. 33 seconds is enough time to bypass the surface layers and reach the deeper field of consciousness, where true reorganization begins. The priests described it as the moment when the key turns in the lock. The sages called it the interval where the soul awakens. For you, it may feel like a release, a calm, or a soft glow spreading through the body. Whatever it is, trust it. And when you return from that silence, I invite you to seal the practice by writing in the comments the words, "My healing begins with sound." It is not just a phrase, it is an intention, a mantra that connects you to others on the same path. Together, those voices create a collective resonance, a field of healing that grows stronger each time one more person joins in. The turning key is in your hands. All it asks is 33 seconds of courage, 33 seconds of surrender, and the willingness to let your own voice remind you of what you've. In the end, all the temples, the chants, the frequencies, and the hidden codes point back to something profoundly simple. The power to heal has always lived in your own voice. When you sing with intention, you are not just soothing yourself, you are adding your note to a much larger harmony. Each voice becomes a thread, and together those threads weave a field of resonance, strong enough to hold us all. This is why the ancients guarded their secrets, not out of fear, but out of reverence. And now that this wisdom returns to us, we have the chance to carry it forward, not in isolation, but in community. Every time you chant, every time you write the words, "My healing begins with sound," you join a chorus that stretches across time, across distance, across hearts. So, do not keep this practice to yourself. Share it. Let your family, your friends, and even strangers feel what happens when sound and silence meet in purity. Together, we can keep this frequency alive, not as superstition, but as living truth. And as more of us remember, the resonance will only grow stronger. Your voice is the key. Our voices together are the awakening.